All right, let's bounce to animal health. Animal health has this reputation for holding steady, even in down economic times. But 2025 has been a fairly challenging year for the industry. How would you say the animal health industry has performed this year, and what factors have influenced it the most?
Yeah, it has been a challenging year for them. You have uh, pet owners who lose their job or being impacted, and it may not have a direct impact on the industry, but if a pet owner loses their job or there's uncertainty at work, they're more likely to spend less, just kind of in those uncertain times. Um, but I think the good thing is that, for the pet industry, it's been shown that the pet owners are more willing to spend on their pets than themselves. If the pet needs, healthcare, more likely to take, buy the medication and receive care for their pets than for themselves. Um, and I think that there have been fewer transactions within the industry this year than I expected. I really expected it to be an active year, but with the tariffs and so on, there's been a lot less than I expected. So, which is not, I guess, not surprising, kind of given the uncertainty that's out there. But you still need pets still need care. They still need pet food. They still need toys and things like that.
I think part of this too is, going back to the pet owners, a lot of data would always show that they would spend, the pet owners would spend on their pets first. But I think when you can't pay your rent, you think about that a little bit differently. And I think, do you think some of that's reflected in, the numbers? Visits are down, transactions are down. I'm talking within the veterinarian's office. Thoughts on that?
Yeah. So within consumer sentiment, right, things are holding pretty steady, right? They're down a little bit, but they're holding pretty steady. So people are saying, okay, things are fine right now. They're not at all-time highs. They're not at lows. Um, they're doing pretty well. If you ask them about their expectations of where things are going, the expectations are rather negative. And so even for those folks who are doing well and they're saying, hey, things are fine for me, but kind of given everything that's going on, I don't expect things to be as positive in the future. That's probably going to impact spending. So even if they have that disposable income, even if they can spend the money, they may not, just because the perception is that things may turn negative in the future. So they're going to hold back. So I think that's also impacting things. So if you don't need the care, if you don't need the toy, um, from what I'm hearing, that's impacting those decisions, even if that household hasn't been impacted directly by the tariffs or unemployment or so on.
So if we take a look at next year, what's your read on where the animal health industry is headed? Is it going to be another challenging year? Or do you see economic variables turning that consumer sentiment back into a more positive direction?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question right there. I think that if let's say we open the government this week and we kick the can down the road until January, but we still have tariffs, we still have a lot of that uncertainty. And then in let's say May, when they replace Powell, that could add to more uncertainty too. Because if that appointment isn't viewed as being credible, that could have impact. So if you have a lack of data and you have these appointments that aren't well regarded within the economy, that could impact things. And I'd say keep your eye on the bond market to see how they respond to that. But I think I would expect 2026 to be another challenging year until we get more clarity on tariffs, on policy, on rates and so on. So I, for so with the market being at all-time highs and companies doing very well, that and if you look at the valuations, they're at historic highs. That doesn't necessarily mean there's a bubble, right? That doesn't mean that there's necessarily going to be a crash or anything like that. People are investing in these companies. They're doing well, right? They're growing. They've got the fundamentals. They're just at historic highs. So being priced to perfection, there's less tolerance for disruptions in the economy and things that are going. So could there be a pullback? Sure. Could there be a crash? Maybe. I don't think that's imminent, but I do think that it'll continue to be a challenging environment for businesses to operate. And those companies who do want to do M&A transactions are probably going to be more risk averse and focus on quality and growth and sustainable businesses and helping them de-risk and diversify as opposed to taking on risk and growing at all costs. So it's I do see that unless we get clarity, that we will continue to see a challenging environment for the animal health industry for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, that all makes sense. And hopefully, we break out and we get back to the trends that we're all used to, but we have to plan for both. Thanks so much for joining us today and making the time and sharing your expertise. Love to have you back in the future, maybe next year at the same time. So thank you, Scott.
Thanks for having me.